Untitled Goose Game is actually a factual game about the existential horrors of living in a small English town. It's also available to play as part of the PlayStation Plus Extra Games catalogue as of the making of this video. We're taking a look on PlayStation 5. We cover a new game every week, so if you like what we do here, consider subscribing. And with that, we're declaring that peace was never an option, and letting you know if Untitled Goose Game is worth your time. Untitled Goose Game is a compact gameplay experience, but there's not a lot of depth here. The goal is to have a productive day by completing your to-do list, have a picnic, get on TV, rake in the lake. You achieve your dreams by grabbing things in your beak and honking, and whilst the game puts you in a lot of different setups, there isn't a lot of variety in the actual moment-to-moment gameplay. We never truly expand from grabbing things and running around. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad gameplay experience and is short enough to be fun. Only one to-do list item annoyed me, and that was getting the pint glass into the canal. Failure for this one task is a really big setback, and it really hurts the pace of the game. The main draw of the gameplay here is the funny stuff. Yes, it is funny to untie a kid's shoes, make him fall over, and then steal his glasses. It's equally funny to unlock the Goose Honk suppressor or do a Metal Gear Solid. What's not funny is making this one fella spit out his tea. That's actually a criminal offence over here, and it's the point in the story where I realised the goose was the baddie. There is a co-op mode if you have a friend over. The game is the same, but the chaos is doubled. I do like that there's lots to interact with in each area, and not all of it is integral to completing your objectives. It gives a bit of freedom to what are pretty limited puzzles. A lot of stuff here has one way to solve it, and I was left wanting a little bit more freedom in my chaos. Of your to-do list items, you can leave one, and then you unlock a bonus task to move on to the next area. Most objectives are to do one thing, but there is usually an objective to collect a bunch of items and put them somewhere. My big gripe with the gameplay is that there's a lot of waiting for people to get back into their places to do a second take. You get a go at causing chaos, and if you fail, everyone just sort of forgets you're there and goes back to sipping their tea. The environment doesn't feel very reactive outside of some changes and the ending sequence. Overall, there's not really much to talk about with the gameplay here. It's a silly, compact little gameplay experience, but outside of the meme potential, it's very average. I was laughing at the funny goose, but I wasn't terribly engaged in the actual gameplay. And that verdict lands Untitled Goose Game a 3 out of 5 for gameplay. The simple look here works well for the silly gameplay. Environments are lightly textured, but nicely stylized, and it all feels oddly nostalgic in a weird sort of way. Everything is pleasant to look at. Objects that you can interact with all have a nice little marker, and some objects, like the bottle or the soap or the harmonica, actually alter your honk. It's a fun little bit of added art direction that gives the game a nice charm, and encourages me to pick everything up just to see what it would do. The goose animations are wonderful, as is the character design. This guy looks exactly like my cat when he's done something wrong, and it only adds to the blank-faced humour. Human exaggerations are all nicely exaggerated, and when the environment is affected, everything has a nice level of chaos. UI design is interesting. The main menu is pretty standard, but I like the pause menu being street signs. There is no standard soundtrack. Instead, when the chaos ramps up, a chaotic piano comes in dynamically. This is a really fun idea, and I like the end result. It creates an interesting soundscape that has stuck in my brain, and I think that it's a really good fit for this type of game over a more standard OST. We're not pushing the boats out with art direction here, but the choices made are largely the right ones. This is not the sort of art direction that really sticks with you for a long time, but it works for the game, and it gets a 4 out of 5. The story here is actually just what British geese are like. House definitely did their research and get points for realism. There isn't really a narrative thread present here. You are a goose, and chaos is the order of the day. Again, this is a fine choice to service the gameplay, but there's not a lot of substance here. The emergent stories are sort of fun, but largely the same. You make a lot of people fall over and chase you. It is always funny, but it does end up feeling a little samey by the end. Obviously, we're not here for the story, but narrative is a component of the game, and here it's pretty below average. We're giving the narrative of Untitled Goose Game a 2 out of 5. Untitled Goose Game is a compact content package backed by some nice settings. We did encounter some jank, however. Content-wise, you're getting around 30 to-do list items sectioned into a nice selection of areas. You do have free save slots. We did encounter some weirdness whilst playing. This was either janky environments or instances where we'd do the right thing to complete a puzzle, but the game wouldn't quite register it. I also had a few to-do list items recomplete themselves when I loaded back in from an autosave. None of these issues are the end of the world, but in a game this compact, I do expect a bit more polish. The selection of settings here are really nice. There are sliders for music and SFX volume. There are also major language options. Player 1 and Player 2 have separate control toggles for run, bend, wings and zoom controls. Controller vibration can be toggled on or off. You can choose the camera focus mode. If 2 players are present, you can choose if icons are present. To-do list text can be toggled between cursive and plain. Settings text can be toggled between italics and plain. I really like this option, as whilst the cursive is more thematic, it's actually pretty hard to read. The plain text helps a lot with accessibility. Controls can be completely remapped for each player. Overall, Untitled Goose Game is getting a 4 out of 5 for specs. The content offering is compact, but that works for the experience, and the settings are well thought out, with some great quality of life inclusions. I do have a problem with the jank, however. Like I say, none of this is game breaking, but there is quite a lot of it, and I think an extra polish pass would have resolved these issues. It took me just under 2 hours to complete Untitled Goose Game. This is a really compact experience, and nice and friendly with autosaves. If you want to get through the whole thing in one go, that is easily doable, or if you want to cause a little chaos on more limited free time, that is nice and easy. Hard drive footprint is nice and small at 1.74 gigabytes. As I mentioned in the gameplay section, only one puzzle felt like it was actively wasting my time, and that was to get the pint glass in the canal. There is some waiting for everyone to get back into their places to try a puzzle again, but outside of this one example, it was never egregious. Overall, Untitled Goose Game gets the full 5 out of 5 on our commitment scale. This is a nice short game that is easy to split into smaller play sessions with a tiny hard drive footprint. Untitled Goose Game is worth the small amount of time it asks of you. It's not a very deep game, but it is some silly fun. It's funny alone and funnier with friends, even if the humour does start to wear off towards the end. I always appreciate games like this, just a fun idea with a bit of charm. Sometimes games just need to be a small slice of silly fun, and that's exactly what Untitled Goose Game is.